person. Let's talk first. We want to talk about a lot of the topics that you address in the book, but the book is called No Going Back, but it sounds like the publisher, Center Street, is going back on a couple of the details in the book.
Oh, I don't believe so.
Specifically, when you write in the book, I remember when I met with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, I'm sure he underestimated me. That, as I understand, is now being removed from the book at your request.
Yes, when I became aware of that, we changed the content, and the future editions will be adjusted. And, you know, I appreciate that. I've met with many, many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. I should not have put that anecdote in the book, and at my request, they have removed it.
That specific meeting didn't happen?
I'm saying that I'm not talking about that meeting. I'm not talking about my meetings with world leaders.
But you
there's
do
some
talk
that are
about
in the
meetings
book.
with world leaders.
There's some that are in the book, and then there's some that's not in the book.
But
Many
why
of them,
are there
actually.
two specific mentions of meeting Kim Jong-un and talking about him, and a specific memory? I'm sure he underestimated me, having no clue about my experience staring down little tyrants. Did you tell your ghostwriter to write that?
I specifically have worked on policy for over 30 years. And over that time, I have traveled around the world, and I have met with leaders around the world. And that anecdote, I've asked them to change the content, and it will be removed.
It's a simple question. Did you or did you not meet with Kim Jong-un?
That's the answer that I have for you, is that it will be adjusted, and as soon as I became aware of it, that content...
I am dying to death because that is so hard to watch. Oh, my gosh. That was Governor Kristi Noem. We told you this last week, that in her book, what is it called? The Gravel Pit? My Career, How I Killed It in the Gravel Pit. That she wrote in her book. She included in her book. Now, after she writes about, she tries to have this like weird flex where she writes about shooting her puppy. Then she says that she stared down Kim Jong-un, and her own staff was like, yeah, that didn't happen. And that got out into the press. And so then she goes on CBS. That's like as much as you're prepared. Girl, you're crumbling under pressure. And it's pressure that you created because you lied in your book. Why would you do this? This is such a disaster. Who is her public? Center Street? Do they hate her? Do they hate her? Because that's what you do to somebody if you hate them. You put a bunch of, you celebrate, you encourage them to put all this nonsense in their book. And then you go, yeah, go out and let's excerpt this part and go out and do all the press on it to hype your book. And then you send her out there and she's just mauled on the Sunday morning show with like some D-list anchor. I don't even know who that lady is. Oh my gosh. And it took and they were all three sitting there, and they were just like, yeah, we're watching your career die. Yeah, we're watching your VP hopes and dreams just crash and burn into the gravel pit that you created right after cricket. That's where your career went. Oh my gosh. That's so uncomfortable to watch. Oh, but it got worse. And by the way, she's mad that everyone's talking about these anecdotes that she says in the book, but she's the one who put them in the book. She put them in the book because she wanted everyone to talk about them. But she only wanted people to talk about them in a way that she wanted them to talk about them. She wanted everybody to be like, oh my gosh, you're so tough, Governor Noem. Girl power, you're so tough. You're so hardcore. Flex harder, queen. She wanted that. She wanted that response. And she didn't get that response, so now she's mad about it. And now it's everyone else that's talking about it and hyping it up. Kane's just dying. But it is, it's true. Now she doesn't like the way everybody's reacting to it. So now everybody has a problem and they're all picking on her and she's such a victim. Oh my gosh, me too. And then it got worse because there's more. Oh yes, it did. There's more of this. This is, oh yeah, audio soundbite 18.
You talk multiple times about it. In fact, at the end of the book, you say the very first thing you would do if you got to the White House that was different from Joe Biden is you'd make sure Joe Biden's dog was nowhere on the grounds. Commander, say hello to Cricket. Are you doing this to try to look tough? Do you still
She's
think
like
that you
looking
have a
identical
shot
to Kim
at being
Guilfoyle at this point?
VP?
Well, number one, Joe Biden's dog has attacked 24 Secret Service
people. So how many people is enough people to be attacked and dangerously hurt before you make a decision on a dog and what to do with it?
Well, he's not living at the White House
That's the question that the president should be held accountable to.
You're saying he should be
That's what the
shot?
president should be accountable to, is what is the number? And I would say about Republicans criticizing me, these are the same Republicans that criticized me during COVID.
You mean when you
They've
try to lock your
criticized me
state
when I've
down,
made
but your
other
state
decisions
legislature
inside the
stopped you? Those Republicans are when you wouldn't sign the bill to protect women in women's sports. You mean those Republicans that were criticizing you? Look, I'm not trying to be ignorant, but have you seen Kristi Noem 6 years ago compared to the Kristi Noem now? With like the longer, I don't know if they're extensions, her face is different, everything's different. I'm just saying she's trying way too damn hard and it's cringe. Stop it. I get it. Either she's trying to be a real housewife of, DC, or she thought that was going to be her glow up and that was all part of her makeover to go and get into the vice president's office. But what she failed to do in her effort to have this glow up is she failed to have a glow up to her actual voting record. She was a moderate when she was in the House. Go and look at her. There are a ton of other Republican lawmakers when they served in the House of Representatives that had a way more conservative record than she did. And she's a moderate governor that's trying to retcon history and gaslight everybody into thinking that she's actually conservative. And she's not. She almost shut her state down had it not been for the Republican state legislature that stopped her and overrid her. She would not protect women in women's sports from men cosplaying as women who wanted to compete with women. In fact, she wouldn't sign it. She vetoed it. And then they came back with a different bill. So she flexes on all the wrong stuff. She's flexing on her puppy, and then she doubles down on it later in the book, acting like she would have done the same thing to Commander that she did to Cricket. So that right there is your evidence that she actually thought that was a smart idea to include something like that in the book. But she's flexing on the stupidest stuff. And maybe she's flexing on the stupidest stuff because she doesn't have anything else to flex on. She can't act like she's Ron DeSantis. She can't act like she's even Brian Kemp because she doesn't have that conservative of a record. She is a moderate at best who's playing on the ignorance and the unfamiliarity that American voters at large have with what she has done previously. And she's trying to make herself look like Sarah Palin 2.0. Except Palin actually had kind of a conservative record, whereas Noem doesn't. And Palin didn't do all that stuff to herself, whereas Noem did. I'm not trying to be ignorant, but at some point you got to stop going to the doctor's office. You know what I mean? Stop. Just lay off it. I mean, when everybody starts looking indistinguishable and they start looking like the same inflated Real Housewife of whatever zip code, then it's a little too much. And I just think it makes Republicans look bad, especially when you're trying so hard for higher office. No one else will say it, so I will say it for you because I know you're all thinking it. I mean, I'm glad at least that I don't know. You do you, but at the same time, be able to move your face. No one, see, guys can't say that. I'm the only person in commentary that can say it because I'm a chick. So, you know what, though? I'm still nowhere near as indestructible as Tim Scott would be if he ends up being the VP pick. So you think he's going to be a VP pick, Kane? Tim Scott.
Well, Steve was talking about that on the break, and I agreed because think about it. The VP is the president of the Senate. Mm-hmm. He is a former senator. He checks at least a couple of boxes. Conservatively, he's not in Florida, number one. And I think that, of all the people in the running, there's a couple of governors that look pretty good. Mm. But I don't know. It seems like Tim Scott could
There's
be
rumors that he's
at the
gay.
top of that list. Yeah.
I mean, to me, if you're a conservative, I mean, if you vote the way I want you to vote, I don't care if you have two heads. But if you're like, I'll abolish the IRS and also protect your Second Amendment rights by getting rid of the ATF and protect life and liberty, etc. Okay, that you have three heads. Okay, great. I don't care. You have two arms and three heads. Wonderful. I don't even care. I don't care. I just come out and just I'm just saying. I'm not saying he is, but I hear rumors from the same people that like rumor over the craziest stuff. But my point of bringing that up is how he would be like a boss in a video game. You can't defeat him. He would be like an undefeatable boss because he would check so many things. He would be black if he would. Well, Republican kind of cancels that out, right? Isn't that what Democrats say?
Yeah,
because
it doesn't matter what you are. If you're Republican,
what do they call Byron Donalds? Like you had white progressives.
They call him Uncle Tom. They
call
him all kinds of racist things. The left can be racist,
but if you're black and gay, does that two of those neutralize the one? How does that work?
I'm sorry.
In the political identity
being
death
Republican.
match. if you're a gay black Republican, does it cancel out what the progressives say is like race traitoring or whatever?
Sure wish it did, Dana. But being a Republican, unfortunately, cancels out every other identity that you have.
Who is there an expert on this, like DEI stupid stuff?
I'm just going by,
Like, what is
life
the math on
experience,
that?
But yeah.
Isn't it like fantasy football or whatever y'all do?
What?
Do you do fantasy football? Steve does it, don't you?
I've done it before, but what is
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I would just think like 2 of the boxes would cancel out that one criticism, right?
Yes,
Isn't that
in
how
the
that stuff works?
logical, non-political world, you're absolutely right. But
Or
we're not
fantasy
living
football
in a
comes
li-
into this.
Yeah, we're not.
Well, I'm just
living-
thinking like your fantasy football brackets, like how you have. I'm in my head. It makes
Yes.
sense. I'm looking at it visually, like all the political identity stuff. Like this political identity battles this one, and then who wins out of
for fantasy football, it totally works.
Like obviously, if you're a woman, that's considered an identity politic that's valuable. If you're a Democrat,
Oh.
Yes.
So it's like how Debo Samuel is also a receiver and a running back. Is that what you're saying?
I see. So
Sure.
depending on which side of the ball he's on.
Flex position. You can use it
I
both.
see.
They get points
yeah,
for both.
sure. Like that, yeah, like two powers. I
So
love
it's
how
like
he just got that. He's like,
whack
oh, that's like say something smart about football.
So it's like whack bet.
Yeah, kind
Okay.
of like not really. It's more understand. Actually, no, you're right. Whack bat's super understandable compared to how the left deals with identity politics. What I'm saying is like if you're a woman, Democrat, you're a woman, then that, according to the left, that's an identity political win, like an ID, a political ID, right? But if you're a dude who pretends to be a woman, trans man, or is that a trans woman? I don't even know.
Pretend it's trans woman if you're pretending to be a
So
woman.
if you're a fake woman, and you're so a man pretending to be a woman cancels out. It's like rock paper scissors, right? So the trans, the dude who's pretending to be a chick
It's scissors.
will cancel out the woman, right? So she's scissors and he's rock.
Good God Almighty, this is not going great.
But I'm just trying to like illustrate a point here.
Yes.
So if you are black and gay and you're a Republican,
You would think you'd have all the protection in the world.
What? Is there a new element in the rock, paper, scissors identity politics game? What? I just feel like that makes you indefeatable. You know what I mean? You're like a Voltron of political identities. Like you're a dead burnt lesbian, or you're a one-armed, you're a Republican one-armed black gay trans, right? Pirate.
Yeah, I get it.
Who's two-spirited. That's a lot. I mean, you fashion all that up and you're like a whole boss.
Yeah, and you can't even criticize them for anything, or else you're just going to be a bigot on all those identities.
It's like a chimera of different political WTFs. That's what it is. So it's like the more you have, I would think that would beat it. I'm just saying. Like, yeah, well, you think our black Republican is a race traitor? Well, he's also gay, you bigot. I mean, just, And then the left is like, oh,
But
how does that work?
he proposed to his girlfriend in January.
I'm just, by the way,
And-
I'm assuming this strictly for, like
No, of
strategy
course.
with identity
And
politics.
I'm right
I don't
along
know.
with you. I'm right along with you. I just think that the way the climate is and the way it's been for a while is that if any one of your labels is Republican, that is the only one you're allowed to have. You cannot have any other identity under that. If you're Republican, you're just automatically evil and bad. And even if you're gay, one-armed, pirate with a limp,
Dead burnt lesbian.
that too, it won't matter because you're Republican.
Gosh, okay, so that's not fair. You can't have. No, it's not fair. You can't. You can be not Republican. If you're a Republican, it cancels out all your other identity politics. The left doesn't get to make up their own rules.